It's been a topsy-turvy week for fans of the Mortal Kombat franchise. Screen Rant broke news this week that the in-production Mortal Kombat movie has narrowed down its cast of characters, and the leaked character descriptions are dire, to say the least. According to Screen Rant, the movie will be led by Cole Turner, an original character who is a struggling widowed single-dad boxer that somehow gets mixed up in the Mortal Kombat tournament. The lead supporting characters include Kano in what seems to be a protagonist role, and Sonya Blade, who in this interpretation is a brainy, prophecy-chasing scholar. If you aren't up on your Mortal Kombat lore and can't tell by my tone, these descriptions are miles away from the source material, but oh, does it get worse. The Thunder God Raiden is now a 14-year-old boy named Jin, while Jax has had his last name changed to Bridges and apparently only gets cyborg hands. Meanwhile, Liu Kang is a ninja warrior instead of a Chinese monk, and while his compatriot Kung Lao is still a monk, he is also mute. Based on this report, one could assume that this movie was being written by somebody that had never heard of Mortal Kombat before and was only given half a copy of a GamePro magazine from 1997 to use as a reference guide. But before you get ready to roll out some fatalities, it seems that this information isn't entirely reliable. As previously reported, this movie is being written by Greg Russo, who I've in the past suspected of being built in a laboratory specifically to write video game adaptations. Russo's Twitter responses to the Screen Rant report hasn't done much to disprove that theory either. The bad news is there's at least a smidgen of truth to the Screen Rant report, as Russo confirmed that the list of characters was based on an older version of the script. The good news is not only is the listing incomplete, but that the character descriptions seem to be pulled squarely out of Motaro's Netherrealm. While Russo was elusive about exactly what was real and what wasn't, he did seem to confirm that Teenage Raiden and Scholar Sonya were both at one point in the script, but are not any longer. Russo also threw shade at the misspelling of Jax's name and the idea that Liu Kang would be a ninja. And speaking of ninjas, Russo low-key addressed the lack of fan-favorites Scorpion and Sub-Zero from the character list, all but confirming that the ninja rivals would in fact be appearing in the movie. So where does that leave the movie? Well, who knows. Being a fanboy doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have good ideas, but at the end of the day, I'd rather have this movie being written by somebody that can casually toss out a reference to the White Lotus Society than somebody who can't. Meanwhile, in possibly similar news, what does Nathan Fillion have to do with the Uncharted franchise? Shortly after leaving his favorite hat on an airplane, which may or may not have anything to do with anything, but I hope he gets his hat back, Fillion started leaving less than subtle posts on his Instagram account. The first was a random picture of the rapper Drake, which alone wouldn't mean anything, except it was accompanied by the phrase Sic Parvis Magna, the motto of real-life Sir Francis Drake and the adopted motto of the video game character Nathan Drake, who Fillion has long campaigned to play in a movie adaptation. This was followed by another post featuring an image of maps, charts, and notes that one would expect to find on the desk of a notorious treasure hunter. But while this doesn't necessarily mean a movie announcement, whether it's a movie, a video game tie-in, or something else completely, whatever Fillion is teasing, it seems that we'll find out more on Monday, as both posts are marked with the date July 16th. Moving on to movies that are closer to release, Thanos isn't the only one balancing the scales this year. Get ready for The Equalizer 2. Denzel Washington is back getting justice for the oppressed, but what happens when he gets the attention of some Black Ops government types? Well, what do you think happens? He kills everybody with sweet action scenes and funny quips. And then, for something a little scarier, we have Unfriended Dark Web. This found-footage thriller is a kind of sequel to the 2015 Unfriended, but it's also not. While it retains the franchise name and the general idea of scary things happening to teenagers chatting online, there doesn't seem to be a supernatural element this time around. Instead, this bunch grabs the ire of a super sadistic online society and ultimately gets caught up in their games. Over in television, Sacha Baron Cohen has made headlines again with Who is America on Showtime, a show about getting high-profile politicians to say and do outrageous things, a concept that probably worked better when the right side of the aisle was still capable of shame. On Sci-Fi, Winona Earp is back for a third season of gunslinging and demon fighting. Meanwhile, Killjoys starts its fourth season, and I have no idea why I haven't taken a closer look at this show yet. Finally on TV, over on Cinemax, Outcast is getting a second season of whatever this Robert Kirkman adaptation is about. And in video games, it's not technically a new game, but I'd be remiss if I didn't note that Sonic Mania Plus is finally releasing this week, adding 2 new characters, new gameplay modes, and some other updates. I may have a more comprehensive look at the game at some point, but it'll be in a couple of weeks. In the meantime, it's a big week for Robert Kirkman's royalty payments. Based on the comic book series Thief of Thieves, Thief of Thieves Season 1 is hitting the PC this week. This is a cool looking stealth game with an appropriately stylized look to it. Next up, Tiny Hand's Adventure is, well, let's face it, it's a low-budget Crash Bandicoot clone, but come on, he's a tiny blue T-Rex looking for ways to extend his reach. That's adorable. For RPG fans, it's a tough week for RPG Maker entries. Empire looks to be a noble effort, but with Octopath Traveler on everybody's mind, it's hard to stand out. You might need some gratuitous nudity and sexual content, like Treasure Hunter Claire. And also featuring nudity, but probably not nearly as titillating, The Miskatonic is a Lovecraftian-inspired visual novel about a witch becoming an occult detective. That leaves us with this week's awesome video. Level Up has a neat idea this week, exploring what happens when you teach Mario the metronome attack. As expected, it doesn't always work out very well. That's everything for this week and for next week. I'm off to San Diego soon for Comic-Con, so we'll see what happens when I get back. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like, and if you'd like to see more, be sure to subscribe. Pass this video around to your friends, and have a great rest of July!